Well, first of all, hello everyone. Good to have you back. It's been a while since we had our last discussion. I believe it was like 2 years ago or something.
Mhm.
But we managed to find time and a suitable topic to discuss today. To answer your question, Mr. Zhukov, our topic is what is truth? Truth is a very, let's say, undefined topic. It's a lot of, perhaps there are a lot of misconceptions around the topic of truth. And the topic of truth is also a topic that's been highly debated and discussed ever since the dawn of human time, human nature, perhaps dating back all the way to Stone Age people or the first sophisticated people of Greece and other cultures, of course. Um, and there are a lot of questions, a lot of things I would like to discuss with you, Vladimir. Um, but maybe first I'll just give you a brief idea or a brief concept for our viewers.
Mhm.
What is the topic or what is the nature of truth, and then of course we'll dissolve into that and we'll dig further and deeper into this topic. To be honest, the definition of truth can be put in perhaps one sentence, but that would be pretty much the end of the whole discussion. But for those that want to truly know what the definition is, or per dictionary, it's of course truth is that which is in accordance with nature or reality.
Mhm.
Right. So, for example, 2 + 2 = 4. That is true. That is a true statement. Or the table is solid. That's also a true statement. Things like that. Things that are in accordance with nature and reality. This is how we socially accept this type of definition and how we operate. Now, of
But
course, then the
sorry that I am interrupting you, but that's not always like this. Like you say, sometimes for some people the truth is the thing that they like or they want to be, and if they like something, if they want that something to be like they want, they think that this is true. If it's okay, if it's good, if it's cool, so they say that yeah, that's true because I like it because it's good for me. Like the sophists, yeah, philosophers of ancient Greece, yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah,
But
okay. So sorry that
yes,
I.
of course, and that is something that we're also going to discuss. And that is then the question of perhaps that is a more epistemological question, because then, you can say that that the sky is blue, which in fact the sky isn't blue. It's more of a bluish violet color, but because of our cone in our eye, we perceive the sky to be blue. And this is then a whole question and debate between empiricism and rationalism, and maybe perhaps also skepticism. But we'll get into that a bit later. My
Okay.
point is that we don't know what really truth is, or that is what I believe to be the case, that we don't really fully know what truth is, and it's very difficult to define truth because it's very abstract, put it that way.
Mhm.
We have a lot of shallow explanation of things and people in the world, meaning that we may know briefly or broadly what the table is made of. For that's just an example, that the table is made out of wood. But then if you begin to ask the person the question, well, what is the composition of the table? Then it becomes a little bit more difficult, because then you have to dive into the whole chemical process, the whole structure and nature of biology of the wood, and so on and so forth, which in often cases people don't really know that, or unless you study it specifically. But that is just one case of example, and that can be applied to many other objects and people of this world. So that is my, let's say, consensus or my conclusion in brief terms what truth is, which is that we seek truth, but it's very difficult to identify it. And because I believe that in the philosophical literature there is no clear conclusion of, well, philosophy is never full of conclusions, put it that way. But truth in that sense is very broadly defined. And so, of course, I cannot answer that question without my good friend Vladimir. What is truth in a universal sense to you? What do you know about truth?
mm, it's not so easy to answer your question because nobody knows what the truth is exactly. That's why maybe uh, different theories exist for nowadays. I mean, different theories of truth, like correspondence theory or classical theory. They say that something is the truth when it corresponds to reality, when it's true, simply. Maybe tautological, but that's it. Coherent theory, conventional, pragmatic. Um, Strictly speaking, what is truth? The famous question that Pilate addressed to Jesus Christ. Yeah, if we try, if we are trying to remember the Bible. Yeah, um, and in Christian logic, it is believed that this is an obvious example of human oblivion, the inability to see the obvious, yeah, since the truth was before Pilate with his own eyes. However, if we do not go deep into theology, religion, if we do not go deep into Christian issues, different, yeah, then in relation to the issues of truth, we will see that there are several approaches. On one of the key approaches to understand the truth, the traditional approach, let's name it like this, is called the correspondence theory of truth, from the Latin to correspond. Yeah, simply put, we call truth true knowledge, knowledge that corresponds to the state of affairs, like you said, that this table is made of wood, the sky is blue, and so on. Yes, so the correspondence between our ideas about reality and reality itself. Uh, the correspondence theory of truth, in fact, is a mm, quite naive theory. Naive in the original meaning of the word. Um, that is a natural attitude of our consciousness, something like that. Uh, so when we say that we know something, um, we have a true idea. This means that our idea corresponds to the order of things that is outside of us. Yeah. The essence of the difficulty that arises in the correspondence theory of truth within the framework of new temporary knowledge, namely the subject-object theory, is how the subject can check whether, or I can check, yes, whether my idea corresponds to the subject, or whether the subject corresponds to my idea, or whether my words that I use to name some subject corresponds to the idea or to the reality. Yeah. Uh, so maybe in this kind of um, things or processes, I'll figure out that there is no correspondence at all. So that's why I may or I can make some conclusion that these things or ideas are not true, or on the contrary, are true or is true. Yeah. So simply, I can compare ideas that I have with each other, but I cannot compare ideas with things because they are on different levels of reality. They could be on different levels of reality. A table or and the idea of a table, yeah, cannot fit in my mind so that I can compare them with each other.
Mhm.
This begs the question, then what do we really mean by truth? And several other concepts of truth emerge. One of them, as I've already said, is called consensual. Maybe you want to tell about this theory, uh, something. Do you know something about consensual theories of truth?
No, this is actually the first time that I've
Okay, okay.
heard consensual theory, so I would like to hear that, and then I would like to also add a few comments to what you previously said. But sure, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So about consensual theory of truth,
Hmm.
uh, namely, we can uh, or we call true knowledge that knowledge in which we agree
Hmm.
with each other, where a certain consensus is achieved. For example, in the scientific field, we consider or we may consider the theory that is shared by people
Hmm.
to be true.
Hmm.
Yeah, for example, many centuries ago, in scientific circles, people thought that for example, the Earth is not round. Yeah,
That the Earth
it's
is
flat.
flat.
Yeah, everybody agreed. The, so
Common agreement.
there were a consensus about that, and that's okay. So that's why they don't like those people uh, who said that no, that's not true, because like Galileo Galilei, yeah, he said that
Mhm.
no, people, look, the Earth is round, it's not flat, but
Well,
uh,
if I'm not sorry for interrupting,
yeah,
but if
yeah,
I'm not mistaken, I think there were a few Greek astronomers who actually discovered that the Earth
yeah,
was round
yeah,
already
that's
way
true.
before, and then Copernicus also
Yeah.
confirmed this fact. But yeah, and that's
Mhm.
also something that I would like to then further discuss whether truth is actually good or bad, because well, maybe the answer might be straightforward, but there are in a lot of cases that telling the truth can lead to death, or it could lead to tortures, like what happened to
Yes,
Galileo Galilei and other people who oppose certain ideas. And this whole idea of consensual theory, what you just mentioned, is certainly interesting, and this is a social acceptance, I would say,
yes,
when a group of people agree on a certain fact or a certain idea, so to speak,
like
and hold it
in
to be
politics,
true.
yes,
I'm
like
sorry.
like in totalitarian regimes or
Dictatorships, yeah.
dictatorship, yeah, when people for some reason uh, have this some kind of consensus about the leader of the state, about leader of party, about ideology, and
Mhm.
they say or they must say or must acknowledge that everything is good, everything is all right, okay, and that's true. If you don't think that that's true, you are a bad guy. You you will have some very
Consequences.
bad consequences. Yes. So, shall I finish, or shall I
Sure,
add
if there's
something?
something,
Okay.
if you're still with the consensual theory, of course.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit left.
Mhm. Of
So, uh,
course.
about this consensual theory, I can add that this is an extremely maybe skeptical approach, which mm, gives rise to other understandings of the truth. So I think that this kind of theory really exists, and we see it. even now, and it will continue to exist in the future because of our specific of our social nature, uh,
Mm-hmm.
of peculiarities of our maybe I don't know of our social psychology, maybe like that. For example, there is a pragmatic um, concept also, a pragmatic concept of truth. According to this approach, associated, for example, with such a wonderful American philosopher as Peirce,
Mm.
uh,
Charles Sanders Peirce.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
we call working knowledge truth from the Greek benefit. Yeah, that is, we call true knowledge that which is confirmed through use, only through use. If it's usable, it's okay. It's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Another
That's true.
understanding of truth, yeah, through practice, is also connected with this. The difference between pragma and praxis is that the practical concept of truth we uh, presuppose human action, and therefore truth is a description of the act in person, since the very nature
Mm-hmm.
of our knowledge is taught through activity. Finally, it is worth recalling that there are a number of other concepts of truth associated, for example, with the aesthetic criteria of completeness, harmony, correspondence, and so on. Truth is often um, understood as a grammatical concept, namely knowledge that corresponds to the norms of our language, which in turn refers to the nature of human thinking, is
Mm-hmm.
considered like true. So, the key point that we discover in modern philosophical knowledge is that when we generally talk about truth and raise the problem of truth, we always, or maybe often, uh, we are faced with a number of difficulties that lead us into theory of knowledge, into the nature of human knowledge, namely in what to mm, to a certain extent we are generally able to test the knowledge we have, and accordingly, truth refers to knowledge that we are able to verify. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, in any case, in any case, the question of truth is a question uh, of correspondence, maybe even more often than any other, than pragmatic some aspects or some other aspects. Yeah, it starts every
Yeah.
time. It starts from the correspondence
You know
of
what's
our
interesting?
ideas, of
Mhm.
our words to reality, and on the contrary, yeah, when the reality corresponds our inner world, inner
Mhm.
some conscious concept. Uh, so that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
You know what's interesting about when you mentioned the pragmatic approach by Charles Sanders Peirce is that well, as you said, that if something is useful or if something is pragmatic, then it's true. The only question I would have there is, what if something isn't useful but it's true? What was Charles Sanders Peirce's approach to that? If, for example, let's say the grass is green, right? A very simple example. The grass is green. That is a true statement, but how is that exactly useful to you, or how would you define usefulness? Or what at least did he mean by usefulness, if you know?
I don't know. Maybe he meant some kind of practice, if you can use it for some practical needs,
Mhm.
if you can solve some problems or issues using this knowledge, so okay, so if it is usable in some kind of way, it's true, it's okay.
Mhm.
Maybe I think from the point of practical view,
Mhm.
from practice, you know.
Yeah, well, this would certainly cause a lot of controversy in the
Yeah,
theological sphere, for example, and stuff like that. But what I actually wanted to circle back to a little bit earlier on was the whole idea that I mentioned between rationalism and empiricism, because the idea, or let's say from an empirical point of view, which is an Aristotelian point of view, perhaps one of his famous views, is that we perceive things through sensitivity or through sensual perception, right? So what we see is basically a fact and true. But oftentimes nature can also deceive us in some ways because, for example, let's say an animal is camouflaged or something appears to be true but isn't in and of itself, right? As Immanuel Kant had his whole debate or theory on the Dasein or the An und für sich, right? In and of itself, we call it in German. So I was just wondering, how do you answer that question when there are two different epistemological approaches to truth? How do we try to find the truth in a certain object when perhaps something can be deceived, or yeah, how would you go about that?
What do you exactly mean, but by this? So how we know? Can you repeat your question?
Of course. So there are two prime epistemological points of view, right? We have empiricism and rationalism.
Yes, yes.
In rationalism, yeah, you know the definitions. I'm not gonna get too deep into those uh, topics or spheres, but empiricism is, as I said, the concept of that we perceive things, that we gain knowledge through perception, through
Mm-hmm.
sensual perception, right?
Yes,
So, for example, this pen, we see this pen as to be black. Therefore, this is a true statement that the pen is black, right? But then there are philosophers like Rene Descartes, for example, who are rationalists, and not just him, but many other rationalist theorists who claim that we do not know for sure what, well, okay, Descartes was also a skeptical philosopher, as far as I remember. He was a Cartesian skepticist. But the point is that from a rationalist standpoint, we cannot really believe things what we see, right? Meaning that we have to use our rational mind in order to make a justified conclusion or statement on a certain particular object, subject, or event. So my question is more, how is there even a specific tool that we, or is there perhaps a best tool that we can use to find truth, or is it never going to be answered? Because I have a feeling that truth, the concept of truth, is just so abstract, and you can argue from many standpoints, but I'm trying to achieve some kind of formal consensus on truth, at least. Is there some kind of method that we can use to find truth, to see it, or how do you go
yeah.
about that?
There are different methods, ways to find the truth. I think that science is built on this uh, variability or uh, these different kinds of methods which help to find the truth. But I think that there is only one truth.
which is
Objective truth that exists um, independently from our feelings, from our wills, from our emotions,
Mhm.
and so on. It simply exists, but the problem is what kind of um, um, how you say it,
What
mm,
would you like to say?
барьеры.
Obstacles,
Yes,
hindrances.
yes. What kind of obstacles mm, are on our way to this truth?
Mhm.
Because these obstacles are always inside of us. Different, once again, different emotions, lack
Mhm.
of knowledge, our mood, or and so on. Culture, maybe some prejudice,
Mhm.
and so on. These obstacles are always in some kind of they make these problems to achieve the truth, which is the only one always. But uh, this truth is situated outside of our mind, and the I think that one of the main aims or one of the sense of existence of science existence sense of the science existence is to achieve this outer objective
Mhm.
truth. That's why science and not only science and religion, mythology, and so on, they try to make their own methods, ways to find this truth, to get know about it. But
Mhm.
the main issue uh, in this problem or issue problem, some kind of similar things,
Mhm.
the main obstacle here is who is uh, better or who have the best method to reach to approach this truth,
Mhm.
science, religion, or mythology. I think that here we are coming to the problem of faith and knowledge. Yeah, what do you think about this?
The
Uh,
fact,
okay, okay.
no.
I wanted to add, answering your question, that there is no uh, there is no only some there is no one way to the truth. Like Buddha said that the truth is the only one, but there is
Mhm.
no one way to it. Ways are different, and they are good if they lead to this truth. Okay, so that's all.
We have one viewer asking,
Okay.
ancient Greeks had no concept of color blue. They called it red instead. Example, the sea, the sky were described as red in their mythology. This was
Mhm.
truth to them. Question, would you agree that truth can change with time? Truth always changes, I believe. I believe that people are flawed all the time. They're never flawless. And knowledge improves with time. And of course, truth can adapt and change. And that is something positive rather than negative, because if we see change, if we, well, change in it of itself is neither positive nor negative, but when we have improved knowledge, that is certainly a closer step to achieving the singular truth. So in short, I believe that yes, that is something that truth can change. I mean, that time changes truth over time, and people adapt, evolve, and develop new mechanisms, new methods for that matter. And that is also why what I was going to speak about, the, the topic that you mentioned, science, is a major key player to achieving truth. Yes, science is in fact a major key player, but again, I also believe that because people are, let's say, they're flawed by nature, they also commit a lot of mistakes, and so truth is still very blurry. It's still very unclear. But in the last, let's say, 2,000 years, we have certainly made a lot of progress forward.
Like the horizon, yeah. You can see it.
Why?
Like the truth is like horizon. You can see it, but you can't reach it.
Same with knowledge, yeah.
Hmm.
The more you know, the more you know that you don't know.
That you don't
Like,
know, yes. Hmm.
and that is something that a lot of people, I believe, forget oftentimes, or at least the people who think they are very well versed in life, but don't know much. I would like
Hmm.
to perhaps now go over to a more social aspect of truth. We've now discussed, let's say, briefly the concept of truth, the overall nature of truth. We have some kind of foundation here. And I was just wondering, are humans by nature more inclined to tell the truth, or are they more inclined to lie? What's your approach? Perhaps from a psychological standpoint, you can maybe answer that. Anyhow,
Everybody lies.
everybody
Everybody lies.
lies, that's right.
Yes.
But
That's
are humans more inclined to tell the truth, nevertheless, by nature? Or, or are we more or are we more lying creatures?
yes, we are more lion creatures.
Lying creatures. And why
Yes,
is that?
because it's in our nature, because it's the peculiarities of our mechanisms of adaptation to survive. You know,
Mhm.
Mm, yes, we know that the truth is very important for our life. We uh, the majority of us um, appreciate the truth. The
Mhm.
majority of us know that the truth is very important, that it must exist more than lies. But in this, at the same time, we tell in lies. Sometimes these lies are not so catastrophic or not so important. Maybe some little lies, yes.
Mhm.
Sometimes much more serious lies happen.
Mhm.
So,
You know, what's interesting about that is that we claim that truth is a worthy good, right? That the truth is something positive and that would enhance our lives. Again, not always for the better, because if we were to actually always tell the truth, no matter what, some things could get us in trouble. On the other hand, if we were to always lie, then that could also get us in trouble, but we could also get away with a few things. But I believe that telling lies is something that will always come back to you, and the truth will kind of always come out. So I have
yes,
this kind of conundrum in my head that yes, we are lying creatures, we lie a lot, but we also know that we technically won't ever get away with telling lies, because in the end the truth always comes out no matter what. So there's only, as long as you can hold on to a certain lie, but eventually the truth will come out one way or another. And I was just still thinking, isn't it just better to always tell the truth instead, or at least not lie, at least somehow try to act or behave in a way that you wouldn't appear as a liar?
Yeah, you're right. It's much more better to say the truth, but you can't always tell the truth all the time. Sometimes some circumstances, or maybe um I don't know, some things. Maybe if you want to seem better for someone, you'll be
Hmm.
telling lies. A lot of people, some people, okay, let's say some people, very often want to be much more better than they are, to seem better for someone. That's why they uh, choose to say lie or to make some not truthful actions.
Hmm.
But yeah, in the end, like you said, uh, everything about the truth will come out, and uh, it's very hard to uh, keep this image of uh,
To keep up,
ideal,
yeah.
yeah, image or something like that. Yeah, to
Friedrich Nietzsche said
Mhm.
something along the lines that it's very hard to keep 20 lies afloat, meaning, in other words, that if you lie a lot for your own benefit, you have to also remember the lie that you say in order to be consistent in your lies. Because logically speaking, if you're not consistent with your lies, you'll be quicker exposed
Yeah,
in that sense, and it's easier to avoid all of that if you just tell the truth. But there are a lot of, let's say, social and legal penalties for not telling the truth. But it's also a matter of who is your judge or who is your leader, so to speak. Because, as we mentioned earlier, if you tell the truth in a dictatorship, that could get you in trouble. That would be a social or
yeah,
a legal
yeah.
penalty. What
Like
do you think of that?
like in Orwell's novel, yeah, the torture of Winston when he was told
Two
or
plus
when he was
two
asked
is five.
if yeah, two plus two is five, he, but he should tell that yeah, that's true. Two plus two equals five, but he can't do that for very long time because he wasn't going to accept that he had to say lies only because someone, even authority, uh, made him tell the lie. But eventually, there was no choice, and yeah, he broke. He was broken, or how you say it.
He
He was,
was he was basically re-educated,
yeah.
or basically he had
Oh,
to bend he
but
had
he
to
was
bend the knee to
tortured.
the
He
government.
was tortured, yeah, with
He was
electrical,
tortured. He was
with
electrocuted or
yeah,
not, or
yeah,
he had some needles stuck up his
yeah.
arm, and every time he didn't admit that two plus two was five,
Hmm.
they would raise the voltage higher and higher and higher until he basically gave up to the pressure. And in the end, he was, I would say, I don't know if he was brainwashed or maybe he
Yeah,
was. I
yeah,
think
he
he
was
was
right.
basically reprogrammed in that way. And that's not a fiction, that's also reality in many ways. A lot of people who were actually educated and smart eventually gave up to the pressure and power of the government and were reprogrammed, or at least had to act in a way that they were reprogrammed.
Hmm. It's like a description of experiments in the uh, in like the name of this work is um, the submission of authority or the submission to authority of
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Milgram. Yeah,
Mm.
do you know?
No.
He
First time.
also used this electrical equipment, electrical
Yeah.
shock.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I think I remember what you mean. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Was it with the teacher and the student? Was it this
Yes,
experiment?
yes, the teacher
Ah,
and the
yeah. Okay.
student, but the student was an actor. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
he only make things like he has some bad feelings that he is very bad, and so on.
Mhm.
And the teacher was the real man who didn't know that it's all like in theater,
Mhm.
but he was ready to make these scary things to make the voltage higher, just only because authority, like how do you say, uh, the general instructor, general scientist who created this experiment told him to heat much higher electricity in
Raise
that
the voltage. Yeah.
to raise the voltage. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
But wouldn't you say that
okay,
was more an experiment of how far you can become authoritarian rather
not
than?
only,
Mhm.
not only. I think that it's all about the theory of consent in the truth. Like
Mhm.
what the questions from Winter Ale about Greeks and about truth that can change if the truth can change with time. I think that the truth won't change, but the consensus among people would change every
Mhm.
time. The main thing is in this content. If some old concepts, some old point of views are not popular and actual, people trying to find some new content. And
Mhm.
that's why we think that the true uh, has changed, changed, has changed, yes.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's not so. That that's sorry. That's not true. That that the truth is, or that the truth has changed. That's not true. Only opinion of people has changed. Yes.
Mhm. You know, let's say, for example, there's a dictatorship that lasts 50 years or even 100 years. People are, let's say, brainwashed, re-educated. They
Mm-hmm.
believe, or they think they believe or know that what the government says is true for a long time, and eventually perhaps the government dies, or better said, the leader dies, passes away, the government starts falling apart, crumbling. Do people who were brainwashed throughout the period of the time of the dictatorship, do they voluntarily start seeking the truth, or do they hold on to the knowledge and truth that they believed that was given to them by the government until the end of their lives? Perhaps that's something what you can talk about from the Soviet Union, because when the
Mm-hmm.
Soviet Union collapsed, media was beginning to open up more. There was more sources of knowledge that was starting to flow into the eastern parts of Europe. Were people eager to actually seek new truths, or were they very conservative and held on to their beliefs their until their last day of their life? How flexible are people to switching their minds?
Mm-hmm. Very interesting question. Thank you. I think that everything is depends in the level of the thing that you call brainwash
Mm-hmm.
people. I think that everything depends on how deep was the how deep the brains were washed out. If those people if we are talking about people that uh, have have been living in the Soviet Union for their whole life, that almost nothing has changed in their minds. They still believe in that Soviet uh, values, ideology, and so on. Or if we are talking about people that only partly was brainwashed, like you say,
Mhm.
there is some maybe good prognosis that they can change or they can re-educate, like you said, and
Mhm.
they can change their minds, change their attitude, uh,
Outlook. Mhm.
outlook. Yeah. So, what do you think about that?
I believe people that have lived their whole lives under, let's say, a communist regime or any other dictatorship regime, it's definitely harder to alter their minds, first of all, because they've been educated in a particular way for 10, 15, 20 years, not just school, but also university and social life in general, what they've been listening to the media. If there's only one channel or two channels, that's what they get. People who, let's say, grew up towards the end of the dictatorship regime, they might still have a chance of reviving their outlook or their perspective on life and gaining new lot, or at least being more open towards new source of truth or knowledge. The only problem that I see here, or let's say the only conundrum that I've been thinking about, is that even if you were to present a definite, or not a definite, but a new source of knowledge, a new source of truth to a person who lived his whole life in a dictatorship, let's take, for example, a North Korean person who is 80 years old, who lives his whole life, or 70, who lives his whole life under the Kim regime for a long time, and you present him with new knowledge, with new facts, or not new, but different facts, or the real facts that are actually true, that are socially accepted, and that are proven to be true through trials and errors. I don't know if that person would still try to change his outlook or not. I would say no, because he would be very, very defensive. And people who are very ideologically driven, that's another component I would like to add, that people who are very politically or ideologically driven tend to act and behave more defensive whenever there's something external that appears to them. So, in other words, people who are hardcore pro dictatorship regime people, put it that way, they will less likely be open to new values, new ideas. And this is not anything new. This has been always the case throughout humanity, throughout history. And I believe that it's very, how would you call it? There's very little chance to
Mhm.
re-educate them. Twice because they were once re-educated throughout the dictatorship, and then re-educate them back to the normal civilian standards. And that push from being already brainwashed to going back to normality is way harder than going from normality to being brainwashed. That's how I view. Perhaps I'm wrong, or perhaps I'm not exactly sharp in that analysis.
Maybe it depends from the case to case, because I think that if we are talking about some young boy, okay, like let's take the age of from 18 to 25. They, for example, they were born in the dictatorship. Uh, but I think that uh, if we or if these people will have some opportunity to re-educate or to change the to change the world that they the place that they live, yeah. So I think that there is some hope that they could be changed because they have not been formed finally, and they don't have um, how you how you say it,
What would you like to say?
they don't have fully accepted uh, they didn't fully accept the reality where
Hmm.
they lived and the values of the dictatorship
Hmm.
because they are young and it everything, yeah. Great role here is played by the kind of influence that the ideology or psychotechnologies make, or you know, what kind of them or are being used, yeah,
Hmm.
to influence their minds. If these technologies are more soft, so it's much more easier to re-educate or to change something. If they are, like you say, like in North Korean Republic, so it's much more harder to do to change something. But mostly in the most examples, maybe, yeah, there are some mm, opportunity to re-educate such people because I think that they uh, have not fully accepted the reality and values of dictatorship.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, we have a question.
The question is, truth concept you're discussing now is too subjective. Should we rather call it knowledge? Can you explain the differences between truth and knowledge? Would you like
Mhm.
to start, or do you want me to quickly
Okay,
answer?
you can answer.
Truth and,
It was your idea to start this discussion, so
well, this is the natural flow from one little topic to another, but I believe truth and knowledge correspond to one another in essence because what we see or what we gather in this world is essentially knowledge, and knowledge is essentially not always truth, but most of the time, or we try to find truth within knowledge, put it that way. And perhaps it might be a subjective approach now that we're discussing regarding dictatorships and education. But in essence, truth and knowledge are, I wouldn't say identical concepts, but they're certainly interconnected to each other. And
Mhm.
therefore, you cannot have truth without knowledge, and you cannot have knowledge without truth. It's kind of a mutual
But
thing, I
knowledge,
would call it.
like you say, knowledge is not always true. So
Knowledge is not
we
always
can
truth.
we can have uh, false knowledge and truth knowledge. Yes, because for example, if we um, go a little bit deeper into the history of science or even to the philosophy, we can see there that there were some theories that finally appeared like false knowledge.
That were
Yeah.
debunked. Hmm.
Hmm. Well, like the theory about atom, yeah, that it
About what?
uh, corpuscle, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that the corpuscle is not or could not be divided, yeah, till maybe till the 19th or yeah, I think that maybe to the end of 19th century or maybe to the beginning of 20th century, everybody thought that the corpuscle is not
Mm-hmm.
or could not be divided. But Eureka, there was a man, scientist, I don't remember who it was exactly, corpuscle
Yeah,
division, yeah?
exactly.
Mhm. So when this scientist, okay, let's say I don't remember who was it was exactly, when he found that it's okay with the corpuscle could be divided, it uh, had led to the crisis in the physics, in the chemistry, and in all this how you call it precise science or simple the science, yeah, the science uh, it had led to the
Mm-hmm.
science crisis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What? it was a knowledge. It was the knowledge during centuries, during thousands of years. Everybody believed and knew that the corpuscle is not able to divide. But then it appeared that that knowledge was false knowledge.
I think we should perhaps in a later contents do a subject on education purely because I believe this is a topic that we could actually unveil further that we're now discussing. The whole idea of, whether truth or whether knowledge is a constant fact or whether it changes is an interesting perspective for sure. I haven't really thought much about that because I always had this perception that, a fact is a fact, that 2 + 2 is 4, and that's it. You cannot alter it, you cannot change it. But then there are facts and knowledges that you can't, or that aren't static, in other words. Things like,
Mhm.
or at least the concepts and perceptions that we hold to be true, right? Again, simple example was the flat earth theory. A lot of people held to believe that the earth was flat because that is how we perceive, because we only saw up until the horizon and the earth was just kind of flat, and people held this common belief. And that was also claimed in the Bible as well, or a lot of religious soteriological believers or viewpoints held that to be true for a long time. So I think we should have some kind of a separate discussion on that. I would like to start finally concluding this topic, this question, what is truth? I think in short essence, there are, again, many different viewpoints on how to approach truth. One of them that you said was the correspondence truth,
Mhm.
that fact and nature correlate with each other or
Yeah.
correspond. The other one is the consensual theory, which is the social acceptance theory. In other
Mhm.
words, what people come together and agree on certain facts and values. And that's not just applied in the scientific realm, but also in other spheres, in religion or in other institutions where people
Everywhere,
set in
like
everywhere,
you said,
basically, where
everywhere.
people
Yeah.
set a list of rules or facts, right? And then there's also the grammatical concept, which to be honest, I still didn't fully understand. Well, maybe halfway through, but this is perhaps a less commonly viewed approach
Mhm.
on truth. And of course, we have the pragmatic approach, Charles Sanders Peirce, who believe that truth is, or meaning that if a particular object is useful, then
Mhm.
it must be true, which is also a positivist approach, in my opinion. What is your conclusion, or is there anything else you would like to add, perhaps you wanted to
No,
say or didn't
no,
have the chance to add.
I don't. I have nothing to add because you said everything very briefly and exactly like it should everything that should to be said or
That should be said.
should be
Exactly.
said. Yes. Yes.
There's a lot more things that we could talk or speak about, but then the podcast would be enormously big. So I suggest we leave a few questions out for further podcasts. And if viewers have any further questions, feel free to write them down in the comments. If not, you can privately message me or Vladimir for that matter. And on that note, I would like to thank you, Vladimir, for taking your time.
Thank you too.
Really appreciate
Thank you too. It
it
was
that you find the time.
very interesting. Sorry for my English. It's not so good for now, but
Absolutely no problem.
I will
That
do my
doesn't hurt.
best to improve it.
No, it's very good. I
Thank,
appreciate it.
thank you very much. Thank you
All
very
right
much.
then.
But yes,
Have a good
till
evening.
so had a good evening too, and till the next
Till the
meeting
next time.
online. Okay, till the next time. Bye. Take
All right.
care.
Take care. Goodbye.